Hey there, welcome to LSAT Demon Daily. I'm Ben Olson, that's Nathan Fox. We're the founders of lsatdemon.com and our weekly podcast, Thinking LSAT. This is coming to us from Dylan. The subject is predicting necessary assumptions.
Dylan says, "Hi, Ben and Nathan. I'm newer to the Demon and have already seen progress after just a brief time studying. Thank you. I'm writing in because I'm struggling with predictions on necessary assumption questions specifically. I hear in some video explanations that it's difficult since these arguments can have several necessary assumptions, but I still want to follow your advice of having a well-formed prediction before going attack mode on the answer choices. Any advice would be great. Thanks again, Dylan. And we do have a necessary assumption question, Ben, that we can work our way through.
All right, excellent. One thing I want to point out, Dylan, is it seems like you're approaching the prediction process in a way that a lot of people do, and that is you think that you need to make a prediction and that prediction will or must be the correct answer. No, it just has to be one possible answer. It's priming you to understand what the question is asking, what you just read. And so when you read that answer or another answer that fills the same function, then you can pick it. You definitely do not have to predict the answer.
The other thing, and maybe it's our fault for not communicating this better, or the LSAT prep world's fault for not communicating this better, that when you attack an argument, that is the prediction. You just attacking, just telling them, hey, I see your conclusion, I see your evidence, I'm going to tell you all the various ways that this might fail. When you do that, you're predicting the answer for any question they could possibly ask you. So it's true that necessary assumption questions can be harder to like predict exactly the answer because there's a million different necessary assumptions for basically every argument. But if you have attacked the argument properly in the first place, you're priming yourself like that. That is a good enough prediction. It doesn't have to be like, oh, this is a necessary assumption question, so now I have to predict exactly a necessary assumption. Nah, it's not really like that. If you know what the conclusion is, you know what the evidence is, and you can tell me one or two reasons why that's potentially bullshit, then you're on the right track, regardless of whether you exactly predicted something that would be a necessary assumption of the argument.
Yeah, maybe it's just the nature of the word predicting.
I think so. I think you're right.
We might have to say something different.
Yeah, that you should just attack.
Yeah,
Is there
your
an
attack
argument?
is preparation for a prediction after you read the question.
It's always just a reading comprehension test. You know, if they made an argument, you should see, okay, I see what you're concluding. I see what your evidence is for that conclusion. And I'm going to tell you what I think about it. And what I think is like, I need to strongly prefer to tell you the reasons why your argument can fail, not tell you the reasons why your argument's good. Tell you all the reasons why your conclusion doesn't necessarily follow from your facts. Then, regardless of what question type it turns out to be, you know, I think people they like skip that first part, right? Especially if they're reading the question first.
Yeah.
If they're reading the question first, they're like, okay, I got to look for a necessary assumption. You know? And it's like, well, wait a second. Necessary assumption questions are basically just must be true questions.
Yeah.
And it can be really hard to predict the answer on must be true questions if there's not an obvious connection to be made.
Yeah.
Then all we're looking for is the thing that has to be true. Anything, no matter how small, that has to be true based on those facts. And there might be dozens of things that must be true based on those facts, dozens of tiny things that must be true based on those facts. And you might not know it exactly until you see it in the answer choices. But if you know what the evidence is and you know what the conclusion is, and you can come up with some good objections for why that evidence does not prove the conclusion correct, then you have primed yourself, even if you have not made an exact necessary assumption prediction.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's so wordy. You want to do this question?
Let's do it.
Okay, I want to note that if you do the LSAT our way, you do not ever need to diagram any logical reasoning question. We just don't teach diagramming at lsatdemon. It's not helpful. It's a huge waste of time. If you can do a diagram properly, you probably could have done it faster in your head. And if you can't do a diagram properly, then it's not going to help you to diagram. So we really think that diagramming is a waste of time and confusing. And we're just only going to do these questions by actually comprehending what we're reading. Students frequently think, oh, if I diagram it, I don't actually have to understand it.
Yeah.
And it's far better to just understand the argument that's being made and engage with it in a common sense sort of a way.
Yeah.
All right. How are we going to do this?
I think maybe it's your turn. Your turn to read, and
Okay.
I'll react. Yeah.
I'll read. I'll try not to react. I'm going to let Ben react. I'm just going to read the argument.
Okay.
And I'm going to stop at all punctuation.
Okay.
Every member of the Thieves Guild must be able to communicate in Zords.
Okay. I don't know what the Thieves Guild is. I don't know what Zords is. It's apparently some language, but I do know that there's this group of people, and everyone who is a member of that group, let's say 100 people, must be able to communicate in this particular language, Zords.
Yep, and it goes on and it says Zords, comma, a language where all nouns start with Z.
Okay, fucking weird, but whatever.
Okay, all right. So we have a rule that if you're in the Thieves Guild, you have to communicate in Zords. What is Zords? It's a language where all the nouns start with Z.
All the nouns start with Z. So one thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to take these two pieces of information. It's only one sentence, but there are two pieces of information in here, right? It's telling me about every member of this guild, and it's also telling me about every noun within the language that they apparently have to speak. Starts with Z. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, if anyone in this guild communicates with a noun, they might not, but if they do, I know they're going to say a word that starts with Z.
Yep.
That's
How
all.
might you
Small
say,
thing.
how do you think they say boy, just picking nouns at random, right? Boy and girl. Those are nouns that we learn when we're kids.
Zoe?
Sure. Zoe and Zerl. Yeah, maybe. All right. Candidates are not members until Zach says, quote, welcome to the party in their physical presence.
My gosh. Okay, so yeah, there's obviously some initiation process. Depends on this person, Zach, who I don't know who they are, but okay. Sounds good. You got to go to Zach. I'm imagining someone standing in front of Zach, and Zach's like, welcome to the party. This says you can't be a member until Zach does this. That does not mean that if Zach does this, you are now a member. I want to clarify, this is a necessary condition, not a sufficient one.
Yeah, I agree. Zach might just be literally welcoming people to the party. There could just be
Constantly.
guests that he's welcoming to the party.
Yeah.
But if they don't speak Zords or who God knows what other criteria, he might not be actually inducting them. Right? If Zach doesn't say welcome to the party, then you're not a member.
Okay.
And if you don't speak Zords, you're not a member.
Yep.
But even if Zach does say this and you do speak Zords, you still don't necessarily have to be a member.
That's correct.
And we do not need a diagram to help us understand this. This is just understanding the rules on the page.
Yep.
Okay, AJ has been studying Zords for 1,737 consecutive days, but he knows little English.
Random fact. Okay. It's almost like the passage is trying to get me to think that AJ knows Zords or can communicate in Zords and will therefore be a member. But first of all, I don't even know if AJ can communicate in Zords. All I know is that he's been studying it for a really long ass time. And even if he is able to communicate in Zords, that doesn't now mean that he's going to become a member for a whole host of reasons. That's just a necessary condition. That's the most important one.
He has been studying Zords for 4 3/4 years.
Thanks
straight.
for clarifying that. Yeah.
I had to do the math really quick, but 1737 divided by 365 is 4 3/4. So
okay.
I think it's not a crazy assumption to think that he probably can communicate in Zords.
Yeah, I don't think it's a crazy assumption, but who cares, right? Even if he can, that doesn't tell me anything.
True. Okay.
I want to say one other thing. I
Yep.
guess this must be in Duolingo. Like, how the hell do you do this consecutively, right? For every day?
He's got the reminders built in. Yeah. He's got the
Yeah.
streak. He's at the top of the streak leaderboard.
For Zords.
Okay. Last sentence. Nevertheless, AJ will be a member of the Thieves Guild by tomorrow night.
All right. Weird. It doesn't sound like a conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
It almost just sounds like another fact. I
Yep.
guess we'll have to see what they end up asking us to do with this information. But if that's just another fact, then I would put that together and say, okay, well, if that's actually true, if AJ is going to be a member by tomorrow night, then I know that he will, at least by tomorrow night, be able to communicate in Zords and must have encountered Zach at some point in person and heard the words, "Welcome to the party."
Yeah. Does that have to happen tonight?
No,
Could
no,
it
it
have
doesn't happen.
happened 20 years ago?
Could have. Didn't say anything about timing. I mean, obviously it has to have happened.
Yep.
So it needs to happen by tomorrow night, but as long as it does, we're good.
But they could have been 5-year-olds in kindergarten together when Zach said, "Welcome to the party."
Yeah, and Zach is finally waiting for AJ to like can learn Zord.
Well, and do whatever the other application process is, right?
Yeah,
Submit
yeah.
himself to the hazing ritual that might take place later in order to be a member. We don't
Yeah.
know all the things we don't know. We only
Mhm.
know the things we actually know. And so
Mhm.
you're dead on the money there that I would have read that as not a conclusion. I would have read that as just a fact. AJ will be a member of the Thieves Guild by tomorrow night. And my
Mhm.
reaction to it would be, all right, well, so the dude must be able to communicate in Zords by tomorrow
By
night.
tomorrow night. Yeah, not today
And
necessarily. Yeah. Mhm.
and by tomorrow night, he will have at some point in his life been in the physical presence of Zach, who uttered the words, "Welcome to the party."
Okay, this is an odd passage. Let's read the question.
The conclusion relies on which one of the following assumptions?
Okay, so apparently there is a conclusion. The only thing that could possibly be a conclusion here is that last sentence.
I think so. Yeah.
So therefore, okay,
Yeah.
given everything that AJ has done, he will be a member by tomorrow night. That's
It's a
yeah,
prediction, right? Like we
yeah.
had a bunch of rules and then we have a
Facts. Yep.
prediction.
Yep.
And so I think sometimes the LSAT is going to say that that's a conclusion that's being reached. And now this is asking us for an assumption that is required by that conclusion.
Seems pretty straightforward. I mean, we have to assume that he's going to be that by tomorrow night, whenever this occurred, like we've already said, Zach will say these magical words to him, and by tomorrow night, he will finally be able to communicate in Zords. Maybe
Yep.
those two things have already happened. It doesn't really
Correct.
matter. It's just that we know at least that those things will have happened by tomorrow night.
Yeah, both of those things might have happened 1,736 days ago,
Mm-hmm.
as far as we
Mm-hmm.
know, right? But those
Mm-hmm.
things have to happen, or else he can't be a member of the Thieves Guild.
Mm-hmm.
We treat necessary assumption questions like they're just must be trues. So going through
Yep.
these answer choices, Ben, are you hoping that A is the correct answer?
No,
Why?
I don't know. I never hope that any answer is correct. I expect them all to be wrong, and one might convince me
Right.
that it
Yeah.
works.
I think
Yeah.
students get that exactly backward. They go in looking, they're like hoping that A is going to be the one.
Mm.
And what an expert will do is expect that A will be wrong 4 out of 5 times,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's right 1 out of 5 times. 4 times as often, it's wrong. So we must, if we're being sensible, right? If we're being realistic, we read answer choices expecting them to be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So stop me if A is wrong. Stop me as soon as you know it's wrong.
Okay, sure.
A says, tomorrow night, at least one language in which AJ can communicate will have a Z in its alphabet.
Um, that's weird, but it seems like something that has to be true because we know by tomorrow night he will be able to communicate in Zords, and we know that Zords is a language where all nouns start with Z. So how can Zords not have the letter Z in its alphabet?
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. It's not, of course, what we predicted, but it is tied to what we predicted,
Yeah.
which that he'll be able to communicate in Zords. This is just a
Yeah.
weird, convoluted way of saying that. So I'm going to keep that open. And I don't see anything wrong with that,
And I
honestly.
think that this is a really good lesson here for
Mm,
Dylan.
mm,
This is exactly what I'm talking about, where it's not really possible to exactly predict that.
mm,
You know, you could have definitely predicted, okay, so Zach, or what's the dude's name? AJ. AJ can communicate in Zords. We know that.
mm-hmm,
He also has heard Zach say the magic phrase
mm-hmm,
at some point.
mm-hmm,
But this formulation of tomorrow night, at least one language in which AJ can communicate will have a Z in its alphabet.
mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't connect to the thing about the nouns. Nonetheless, we know Zords has every noun starts with Z, and AJ's, if he's going to be able to communicate in this language, yeah. You know, it's just you read A and you go, I think that has to be true.
Yeah, I can't see how it's not true.
So if we can
Yeah.
eliminate B, C, D, and E, we're going to pick A. B
Yeah.
says,
Hmm.
by tomorrow night, AJ will have learned and will be able to communicate using all words in Zords that derive from English. You were shaking your
What?
head about 2/3 of the way through that one.
Yeah, all words in Zords like turned me off because it just says that if you want to be a member of this guild, you must be able to communicate in Zords. There's no mention that you need to know all the words or using all the words. I don't know all the words in English, yet I can
Right.
communicate in English. So right there, I was already like, no, it doesn't have to be true.
Exactly. And especially doesn't have to be true that he knows all the words in Zords that derive from English. There was nothing in
Like,
there
yeah,
about
yeah, it's just like
derivation of,
piling on to the badness, right? You're like, okay,
no.
I already hate this answer, and now you just made me like hate it even more.
Yeah, but it was wrong before we even got to that point. C says anyone who speaks in Zords must also be a member of the Thieves Guild.
That's confusing. Sufficient for necessary. We know that if you're in the guild, you have to communicate in Zords, but that doesn't mean other people outside of the guild can't communicate in Zords. So it doesn't have to be true that anyone who speaks in Zords or communicates in Zords must also be a member.
Yeah, the entire planet of Zord or whatever, they don't have to even know the Thieves Guild exists. And they could
They
all
just
just
never
be
met
speaking
Zach.
Zords all the time. Yeah. Okay. D, relative to now, Zach's physical presence will have to change by tomorrow night.
Nope. We've already said that, hey, this incantation may have taken place five years ago, or who knows when. So
E, Zach and AJ will be in the physical presence of one another tomorrow night.
same issue. So D and E are out.
E's the most commonly chosen, not just the most commonly chosen answer or wrong answer, but it's by far the most commonly chosen answer.
So it was chosen more than the correct answer?
Like twice as often.
Wow. So people really read a lot into that second sentence. Candidates are not members
Yeah.
until Zach says something, and they're like, oh,
Yep.
this has to happen
Right.
right before you become a member. Like,
I think
what?
it's a nicely crafted little trap here because I think it's pretty natural that, you know, you're imagining an initiation ceremony at the Thieves Guild.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And Zach's there with his, you know, he's got his ripped off sleeves on his shirt and he's got his vest.
He's communicating in Zords, and
He's
yeah.
communicating in Zords and he's going to induct AJ. But, you know, AJ could already be a member of the Thieves Guild as far as we know. AJ could have been a member of
100%.
the Thieves Guild already for 4 years as far as
Yeah.
we know.
Mm-hmm.
So they do not have to be in the physical presence of one another tomorrow night.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, Zach could be dead as far as we know.
It could be. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that definitely does not have to be true.
Mm-hmm.
But I think people just really don't understand how much necessary assumption questions are like must be true questions, right? They look at A and they go, well, that's not enough. Like it doesn't feel like enough. Tomorrow night, at least one language in which AJ can communicate will have a Z in its alphabet.
Yeah.
That's not enough. But they're not thinking about it the right way. Just like, yes, that I know it's not enough. This is a
Mhm.
necessary assumption question. We're just looking for the one that has to be true and can't
Yeah.
possibly be false. If he
Yeah.
can't communicate in any language that has a Z in its alphabet at all, then he definitely does not speak Zords. And if he doesn't speak Zords, he can't be in the Thieves Guild. So A
Yep.
has to be true,
Yeah.
whereas E does not have to be true. He could get inducted today. He could have got inducted 5 years ago. He doesn't have to be getting inducted tomorrow night.
Mhm.
He could also get inducted tomorrow morning or
Yep.
tomorrow at noon. Okay. Um, and that is that. Anything more about necessary assumption questions or anything more for Dylan?
I think the most important thing is to remember that you're attacking the argument, you're
Yep.
figuring out what's wrong with it,
Yep.
and then you're reading the question, and then you're making a prediction, and you're predicting a possible correct answer. I think everybody thinks they're predicting the correct answer, and we don't do that. We just predict a possible, hey, here's an answer that could work. And the test might give it to us, they might not. Doesn't
Yep.
matter.
Excellent. Thank you, Dylan, for writing in. Email daily@lsatdemon.com if you would like to ask us a question or share some LSAT or law school admissions news. Thanks for listening.